Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Mess. So, today I got a fun and exciting video for you guys today because I'm playing Tobal number 2 right now, and that is because a recently released translation patch is available. Now, this game was translated before in the past, but the text formatting and kerning definitely left a lot to be desired. And that's not a knock on the original translation team, it's just one of those things. It had been translated over, but it really wasn't the best thing to play. Now, as of today, well actually a few days ago, as of the recording of this video, there is a brand new translation patch for Tobal number 2, and honestly this game, I have no idea how it never left Japan because the original game did really well in North America, but it was a Japanese exclusive. Now we're going to be talking about Tobal 2 as far as the fighting game is concerned first, but we're actually going to go into the translation in just a moment, because if you weren't aware, Tobal 2 has an entire quest mode that basically plays like a combination of a role-playing game and a fighting game in all of the weirdest, most PlayStation 1 ways possible. Before you get too far involved though, do me a huge favor down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, got a Patreon link down below as well. And it has been some years since I played Tobal, so I'm a little bit rusty off the top. But honestly, I had this game back on PlayStation 1, the original at least, and I did see in magazines that a sequel was being made, and I was definitely looking for that at my local EB Games, but obviously I never got that because they just decided this wasn't worth bringing over to the West. And I'm really not sure, maybe that quest mode actually prevented it because it was one of those things. It is a pretty text-heavy game for being a fighting game. But as far as the mechanics of Tobal 2 are concerned, definitely still worth playing, whether you're against the CPU or even better with some friends. It has everything you want out of a 3D fighter, and even though I always try to play this game like Tekken, and that doesn't really work because it has a completely different moveset, I always enjoy my time with this. And again, when this game was new, at least the original, my friends would come over and we would play hours of Tobal on PlayStation 1, and it really did feel like you had the absolute future in your living room. So the fact that we never got the sequel with the quest mode in North America definitely bummed me out back then. But of course, leave it to fans to both translate this as well as patch it back up and make it better. So the entire quest mode absolutely is just a trip, and it's probably something that I'm assuming 9 out of 10 of you didn't even know existed. There is a whole RPG campaign in here that also kind of plays like a 3D beat 'em up in all of the best and all of the weirdest ways possible. And there's even new FMV sequences exclusively for this quest mode. You can tell that the developers were trying to make this game have more longevity and be more popular because everyone did love fighting games, but sometimes when you only had 40-50 bucks in your pocket and you were thinking, what game should I buy? Maybe you skipped over the fighting game because you thought to yourself, well, I'm going to see everything it has to offer in 15 minutes and then I'm going to have to keep replaying it over and over again. So something like a quest mode, definitely a fun idea. If you can't tell already, I'm playing this in Duck Station because it definitely looks prettier there. But up until the point in time this was translated, you'd have absolutely no idea what you're supposed to be doing because everything would be in kanji, and if you couldn't read or write or speak Japanese, you'd have no clue what was going on. And like I said, this did get translated, but a lot of the text would have issues. Some of it would end up off the screen or basically formatted in an odd way. So having this completely cleaned up is going to keep the quest mode alive for a lot more people, basically in perpetuity. And that's always something I'd love to feature on the channel, fans going in and making more games playable for all time. And even though this is definitely janky in all the PlayStation 1 ways, it's also fun janky, and that's kind of the jank I've loved the best. You'll see here as we go in, we're in part of the game that we shouldn't be in yet, but if this wasn't in English, you'd have no idea how you're actually supposed to progress the game. You'd have to use a walkthrough online, and while that does work, it's not as fun as being able to get the text. And now you'll see with all of those text boxes, the formatting is perfect, all the translation makes sense, it is conversational, and it gets us into the first dungeon here. And this is where Tobal 2 totally takes a zag. You have all of these different enemies that you have to fight, and again, it turns more into a 3D beat 'em up than it does anything like a fighting game, but I would say the engine 100% works. And it must have been definitely a hard task back in the day to not only make a sequel to an awesome fighting game, but also then take that engine and pivot it up into a dungeon crawling style RPG. It is a fun idea though, and it definitely does give the game more content. But all the items you're going to pick up, all of the different text that's going to give you indications as to where to go next would be impossible without English. The game also has a fun soundtrack, so soundtrack sample 1, and I'll be right back with more. I mean, who wouldn't want to play a 3D beat 'em up where you have to take on a green frog in a dungeon? That is the fun thing about Tobal 2 when you get into the quest mode. It just absolutely becomes one of the weirdest experiences you're going to have on PlayStation 1 for a game that isn't trying to be weird whatsoever. Because if you really think about it, the weird side of PlayStation 1 gets so incredibly weird that you have no idea what's going on in half of those games. But this is just kind of that experimental PlayStation 1 vibe, and that's why I fell in love with this console back in the day, because for every game like Crash Bandicoot or Symphony of the Night, very straight-laced games that were some of the best of all time, you had developers just absolutely experimenting with what games could be in the 32-bit era, and this Grey Ghoul right here definitely absolutely beating the hell out of me, because again, it has been some years since I've played this, and it does take a little bit to get used to the overall moveset in the 3D combat areas, because the way you turn is definitely tanky, and it is going to trip you up. But trust me, this game definitely has a lot to play, and it is definitely worth checking out for nothing less other than to get some more Tobal 2 in if you haven't played in a while, and to get an entire quest mode, because what other game is going to give you mole meat that you're able to actually use later on? Honestly, I absolutely love the fact that you get mole meat here, and that it's one of those things that you can actually use it. But one of my favorite things about the quest mode is just how absolutely ridiculous it does not adhere to its own logic. If a mole gave us mole meat when we beat it, what do you think a penguin gives us? Well, it gives us chicken, which definitely wouldn't be penguin meat in any way, shape, or form, but I just kind of love how this game doesn't kind of follow its own rules. And you'll see here, obviously, the menu with all of your different items, your experience, and everything else is going to be in full English as well, so you're going to know exactly what every single item does. And moving back into the actual fighting game of Tobal 2, of course, there's also a character that is basically a gigantic chicken that will actually just basically cluck while you fight him, or her, no idea what the chicken actually is here. But it's one of those things, again, Tobal 2 just has such a weird, quirky sense of what type of game it wants to be, and back in the day they were just thinking to themselves, well, if we're going to sell this, and we're going to sell it at retail, sure, we have a whole fighting game here, but what else could we possibly do? Well, we'll throw in an entire 3D beat 'em up that's also an RPG quest onto the disc and just let people have fun with that alternative mode, and that honestly I think took off even more than the fighting game did, at least after you had played it for maybe 13-14 hours or so, and you wanted to do something different. And that is why translations like this and projects like this absolutely matter. They keep these games alive for a whole new audience, because if this never got translated, if it didn't just recently get fixed up to be way more readable, you'd never be able to sit down and enjoy just how weird quest mode is, because any game where you can collect mold meat has got to be a 10 out of 10 for me. And as far as the overall fighting game mechanics of Tobal 2, amazing as well, so you really get two great experiences on the same disc. Let's do the next soundtrack sample, because again, the music in Tobal 2 is straight up awesome, and I'll be right back with just a bit more.
Continue.
There just is really a lot to love about Tobal 2, and now with this new patch cleaning up all that translation, there's a lot more language to love as well. I'm not saying that the quest mode in Tobal 2 is going to be a 10 out of 10, it's definitely like an 8 out of 10, and it definitely has a little bit of that PlayStation 1 era jank, but honestly, this is what I really love about the PlayStation era, what I love about fans going in and making these games more playable for everyone. Having full English with all the proper formatting and everything cleaned up is just a really fun time, and it keeps one more game alive outside of Japan, and that definitely makes a difference. And honestly, what other game can you beat the ever-loving hell out of a penguin and collect chicken meat as a reward? It's weird, it's quirky, and it's definitely something that I can't recommend enough. Even if you play it for 20 minutes and you're not into it, you still get to experience it. So again, the link for the patch is in the description below. You'll have to go ahead and patch it yourself with an X Delta patcher, and I will leave a link to that software as well. That way you can grab it. You'll have to supply your own game files. But take it from me, Tobal 2, especially in quest mode, is an absolute vibe, and it is a pretty janky, fun 3D beat 'em up, and it really goes to show that back in the day, they were trying to figure out how they could extend the life of a fighting game in any way possible. But we're done. I'm going to fight this penguin, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.